Well, I'd like to say good evening to everyone.
Good evening.
We are in Matthew chapter 23 tonight. Matthew chapter 23. We are to the point in Matthew where we're getting close to the end, but this is really the final address that one of the final, well, I think it is the final address that Jesus has before things happen. And the last time that he addresses the Pharisees and the scribes and the Sadducees, he addresses them in this whole chapter is that address that he has to them. He had just finished up debating them and put them to shame, and right on the heels of that, he goes right into this today, what we're studying tonight, and he doesn't cut them any slack. He really gets onto them pretty hard in this chapter, and we'll see that as we go through it. He says, "Then spake Jesus to the multitude and to the scribes. He says, saying, the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat." Now, each synagogue that is out throughout the known world at that time, every time they would have a seat, that was a seat of honor that they called Moses' seat. It showed the authority that they had. So he talks about how they sit in that seat. "All therefore whatsoever they bid you observe." Now it starts off sounding like Jesus is saying, "Hey, whatever they tell you to do, do it." And they said, "That observe and do." He said, not only, he said, observe what they tell you to do, but go out and do it. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? But he turns around and says, "But do not ye after their works." "For they say and do not." Now that's the difference. We like to say, "Do as I say and not as I do," is what they were doing. They were telling people the law of Moses. They were telling them what they needed to do, but they wasn't doing what they said they were going to do, or what you should do, or what Moses said that they should do. Because Jesus goes on and says, "For they bind heavy burdens and griefs to be borne, and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers." They had taken the laws and they had added to them. And we can see as we go down through this a little bit, some of the things that he talks about, how they put more emphasis on certain things than others. And the reason why people put a certain emphasis on some things and not others is, does it benefit me or does it not benefit me? If I am involved in sin and doing things in sin, it's hard to preach against that sin, isn't it? Because if you're preaching against it or telling people not to do it, and you're the one engaging in it, then you're preaching against yourself. It's called a hypocrite. We'll get into that about 7 times here in this chapter. So that's what he's saying here. He said they put these burdens upon you, they make it hard, it's grievous for you, but they won't even remove one of them themselves. He says, "But all their works they do for to be seen of men. They make broad the parallax and enlarge the borders of their garments." Now what that parallax there is, the best I can pronounce it, What that was there were certain times of the day or certain times that those were little boxes that they would make out of leather. And those little boxes they would take and they would strap them to their forehead and it would have a band goes around that would tie in the back. And they would have bands that would go around their arms, and they would also put one on the back of their left hand. Now those little boxes, which was made of leather, would have a scripture that they would put in it that they would be praying about. It was for a time of prayer. It was a time for them to, it was a formal dress, and they did it to dress up and do so. He says that they would make their their parallax, mean that they wore much more than what they were supposed to. Why did they do it? So that they could look righteous and holy. They did it for show. And when they're talking about enlarge the borders of their garments, on the edges of their garment, they had little metal pieces that were put on there. And those also, you can find all this in Deuteronomy, different places. I can give you that scripture here somewhere, but I was reading it. And in those borders of their garments, it was for a show of their status or whatever, depending on what the borders they had. So they're making theirs bigger and better to show their authority over others. That's what that was all for. Not only did they do that to make themselves look better, but verse 6 says, and they loved the uppermost rooms at feast and the chief seats in the synagogues. Now, when you would go to a feast, when you went in, people would be set closest to the host would be the most important people. And as you went out from the host, you could tell the importance of the people. Same thing in the synagogues. When they go to the synagogues, usually there was the chief throne, which were the chief seats, which we'd already mentioned. But there was usually like a stage area in the part of the synagogue where those that would sit, kind of like what we have here at our church, that's where those that would be reading scriptures or those that would be teaching that day would be up where people could see them. They would be up higher. That's the chief seats of the synagogue. They would also have, the students of the synagogues would usually sit on benches along the walls of it. Where the common people would sit, usually on mats or just on a rug or something, they would sit in the floor in the inner parts of the synagogue. So you could tell where you sat was the hierarchy of that synagogue. So when he says that they love the uppermost rooms of feast, means they wanted to be up there around the host. They wanted to be the ones that was showing to be importance. And the chief seats of the synagogue, they wanted to be up front where everybody could see them. I probably know some people like that.
So they even stood on the corners, didn't they?
Yep.
Long prayers.
Long prayers. Yep. To form their faces, to make them look like they were fasting and these other things they did. Not only that, it says, and greetings in the marketplace. And to be called of men, Rabbi, Rabbi. They wanted people to call him Rabbi, which means master. They wanted to be showing their authority when they passed people in the marketplace. And it was custom at that time that if people was passing in the marketplace and one of them was a higher of authority, they would not greet or say anything to those that they thought of was of less value than them, that did not have the higher esteem. It was always up to the lower class person to first salute the upper classman. That's why they wanted to be known as master. They wanted people to call him master as they went by, because they wouldn't dare dignify themselves by saying hi to someone first or acknowledging someone. They wanted to be the important ones. Or don't they just sound like a good bunch of people to be around? Full of themselves, isn't it?
Yeah.
He says, but be not ye called rabbis, for one is your master, even Christ. And ye all are brethren. There's not one master over you, just one, and that's Jesus. He's the master. All the rest of us, we're all even. No big eyes and no little U's. The first shall be last, the last shall be first. Isn't that a different way of thinking the way Jesus had it? He didn't want to be a hierarchy in his kingdom. No, we're all the same. Being around high class or people that think they're high class, boy, I kind of get an itch every now and then.
I'd rather be around the high class than those that think they are.
Well, that's true. That's true. But you know, there are some that get your respect, and they don't have to bid for it. They don't have to ask for it, just by the way they act and how they treat others.
Usually, if you got plenty, you act like you got none. If you got none, you act like you got none.
Yeah. He says, and call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your Father which is in heaven. Now that's spiritually a father, right? Folks, we all have a natural father. It's okay to call him father, but don't call other people a father if they're not your father. See, one of the things that some of the teachers did, those that was the highest teachers, those that thought they was the best, they wanted to be called Abba.
Well, that's the Catholic. They call him Father.
I believe, I don't think they threw this part out of their Bible.
That's right.
See, some of the teachers at that time, and they called their students their children. And their students called them Abba, or Father. So that's what he's going against, the grain of all the traditions that they had at that time.
You got to go back to what I was thinking today in Scripture. Whenever you say God, Jesus, Lord, things that's out of not a praise context, it's in vain. Mm-hmm. He says to not to take his name in vain. And people don't realize that because there's people do it all the time, and they don't do it. I don't guess it's from the heart, it's a habit. I hear people all the time, they'll just crawl up to,
Or, oh my Lord.
Yeah. But if it's not in praise to him, it's actually in vain.
Yeah, a lot of people, when you talk about taking the Lord's name in vain, they think it's the cuss word that
right.
A lot of them said. But it's not so much that even. It's just like John said, just taking his name that's not in praise or worship.
We get in big time trouble. You heard us say something like that.
I bet you did. I bet you did.
Well, me anyway. My heart is this one.
He says, neither be ye called master, for one is your master, even Christ.
Right.
But he that is greatest among ye shall be your servant. Isn't that a different way of thinking? See, Jesus went so much against the things that what they thought, what they believed, and brought in a whole new way of thinking.
But he says to humble yourselves before the Lord. Mm-hmm. So when you do that, you're placing yourself in that last position.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. But there was, I think, and I still equate it to some of the things I see today on TV, some of these TV preachers, and boy, all the riches they have and all the things they have, and the multiple homes and all this stuff. Boy, are they really humbling themselves. Go back to think of what John Wesley did. John Wesley knew how much each week it cost him to live, him and his wife, how much it cost for them to live. And anything they made above that, they gave away to charity for the help of others. How many of us would be willing to live that way? Boy, you think if some of these TV preachers would do that today that has these millions and millions of dollars and these multiple homes and these jet airplanes and stuff, if they give that away to charity to help the poor, boy, wouldn't that really help the poor? And whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased. Isn't that something? Means they'll be humbled. And he that shall humble himself shall be exalted. Whosoever shall exalt himself shall be humbled. Boy, the Lord will humble him on that day of judgment. And those that shall be humbled will be exalted or lifted up. Isn't that something good to think about? Now, we start into 7 woes that he has in this book here. There's 7 of them here that when he starts into them. Woe, he says, but woe unto the scribes and the Pharisees, hypocrites. Now, don't you think that when Jesus is standing on the street corner, or out on, not so much street corner, I mean on the temple grounds, probably on the steps, I can imagine the steps that went up into it, he was probably up on one of the steps where people could hear and see him. When he went to doing this, don't you think that those scribes and the Pharisees and all those teachers of the law that was around him, don't you think that they was getting a little upset and yelling and hollering for him to stop?
Yeah, they thought they was a great.
I was trying to figure out what to shut him up.
Oh, I would almost guarantee you that they was trying to think of a way to shut him up.
Well, I think that's what him being that way helped bring on the crucifixion. I mean,
Oh, it did.
bring them, you know.
Yes. Oh, I think that Jesus knew exactly what was happening here and what was going to happen.
He said what they always did, the prophets. John the Baptist, right on back, Nehemiah, Jeremiah.
Well, he gets into that here in just a minute. He'll get into that here in just a minute with him. He says, woe unto ye, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye shut up the kingdom of heaven against men. For ye neither go in yourselves, neither suffer ye them that they enter in to go in. Now, their evil deeds was keeping them from going into heaven, and they kept adding more and more laws into it to where nobody could keep them. So if you couldn't keep them, he said, because he tells you if you was guilty of one, he's guilty of them all. Why shouldn't I try them, right? Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you devour widows' homes, for a pretense making long prayer, wherefore ye shall receive the greater damnation. They would take these widows' homes. What their meaning is those that was poor and the less fortunate, they would add burdensome things onto them to make them pay. You see, they were supposed to pay 1/10 of what they had into the temple so that it could be used for the Pharisees and the scribes and all of these people to use that money. But they wind up taxing things. That's what the money changers' tables was for. They charged extravagant exchange rates. They charged extravagant amounts for their sacrificed animals, because when they brought theirs in, they judged them and looked at them and said, "Oh, that's not fit. You got to buy one of ours." They make it hard on those that couldn't afford it to pay even more. They devoured widows' houses and pretense made long prayers. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you compass sea and land to make one proselyte, and when he is made, you make him twofold more the children of hell than yourselves. Proselyte, that was someone that was a Gentile or someone that was a non-Jew that wanted to convert to be a Jew. And what they would do was they would put burdens upon them and make them jump through a bunch of hoops, they would say, to make them where they could become Jews and make it so hard that they couldn't do it. So even those that wanted to come to God, they made it hard. I remember my Uncle Carl, his first wife, he lived in the New England area. His first wife was a Catholic woman, and to do that, he had to become a Catholic or they wouldn't allow him to marry her. And I remember, I didn't hear too much about it, but I remember at times when he would talk about the things that they made him do. And of course, he told Grandma about it. Grandma used to tell me stories, and Carl would tell a few of them. It's ridiculous, the things that they make the Catholics do to become a Catholic. You had all these classes and all these things you had to go to. One of the things that they did to get as much money out of it, it's no wonder they're one of the richest people there is in the world, is the Catholic organization. They would give them an envelope when they went into church that had their name printed on it. You put your money in it, and it came out on the church bulletin once a month how much everybody gave. And he said you did not want to have your name close to the bottom, so you would give much more than what you're supposed to make sure your name wasn't close to the bottom.
I got a nephew that goes to a church in Illinois, and according to my sister, and I haven't really talked to him about it, but they make them give their, I don't know if it's weekly or monthly income, and they do the taking out the 10%.
I know my Uncle Hans, he was born in Austria, and he said that they were Catholic, and what they did was when you got paid, your tithe comes straight out of your paycheck. So your 10% went into the church before you ever got paid, just like taxes was. And the only way you could get out of it was you had to swear that you was an atheist, and so that you could get out of paying your tithe to the church. Everybody had to pay it. He also told me that his father, his dad owned his own business. They had their own business, but when his dad retired, he still had a little money coming in, and he didn't tithe it to the church. And when his dad died, they was not going to allow him to be buried in the Catholic cemetery until he paid a bribe to the priest, and then they would allow him to be buried there. So you wonder why the Catholics is the way they are. Isn't that something? The proselyte, in other words, they was wanting people that compass about, means that they went about the sea and the land, and they hunted people, and what they wanted them for was so they could expand their wealth. He said, "Woe unto you, ye blind guides, which say, whosoever shall swear by the temple, it is nothing. But whosoever shall swear by the gold of the temple, he is a debtor." He says, "You fool and blind, for whether is greater, the gold or the temple, that sanctify the gold? And whosoever shall swear by the altar, it is nothing, but whosoever swears by the gift that is upon it, he is guilty. Ye fools and blind, for whosoever is greater, the gift or the altar that sanctify the gift. And whosoever therefore shall swear by the altar, sweareth by it and all things therein. And whosoever shall swear by the temple, sweareth by it and by him that dwelleth therein. And he that sweareth by heaven, sweareth by the throne of God, and by him that sitteth on it." What does all that mean? They had added so many rules that if you took an oath, depending on what you took the oath on, by the temple, by the gold, all of these other things they had here, the gifts, the altar. See, those scribes, those Pharisees, those people that was in charge, they made these oaths so it depends on what you swear upon if you had to keep it or not. That's what happened. It depended upon what you took your oath upon and what you swore by, how easy it was to get out of it. And that usually by paying somebody. How easy it was to get it. But Jesus says that your yeas should be yeas and your nays should be nays. You shouldn't have to swear upon anything. Your word should be your bond. It shouldn't make any difference what you swear on. It doesn't make a difference. The difference of what those religious leaders, those self-righteous hypocrites, as he's calling them here 7 times, compare those to what Jesus says. Just keep your word. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you're not going to do it, then don't swear and tell people you're going to do it. It's that simple. Yes, I did it, or no, I didn't do it. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you pay tithe of mint, and anise, and cumin, and have omitted the weightier matters of the law. That's judgment and mercy and faith. These ought ye to do, and not to leave the other undone. Because ye blind guides which strain at a gnat and swallow a camel. Now what he's referring there to is not only did you make a 10th offering of your income, but you made a 10th offering of your increase. So they was real good at making sure that the mint that they had, that you paid into it, mint was a spice that was growing in Palestine. Ashen was a bitter deal that they had that was used in medications and other type things. And so these things that they're mentioned, that the ashen was, well, I have that in here somewhere too. What the ashen was. Ashen was used by the priests and the Levites as well. So these were things that was to be given. They paid attention to those things and made sure they collected their 10th and everything that they're supposed to, but they didn't say anything about judgment or mercy or faith. They were more concerned about growing their wealth than there was to taking care of the spiritual needs of those. Does that sound like anybody today? Some of these TV preachers that we have that preaches wealth and preaches all this stuff, I think they're more concerned about how much is going in their church than they are about the spiritual needs of the congregation. As a pastor, we are to help people. We're to help them on their spiritual walk. Now, that don't mean telling you what to do. It means that we go with you. We're to help you on your spiritual walk. Whatever it is that you need, we're supposed to be with you. We're held at whatever you need. We're there to be with you, to help you through it. I've heard so many people say, and we probably said it ourselves, there's no use in complaining, nobody listens. I told somebody, when you become a pastor, that's your job, is to listen to the complaints of the people, because, folks, we all go through things, and we all have needs, and there's things that happens in our lives that we need somebody just to listen and hear. I heard John talk about him and Dorothy going up and listening to somebody. Just all they did was listen. Folks, there's people that need to tell things and get it off their chest, and that's what we're here to do, to help each other. These religious leaders was more about what was coming in than the help they were providing for the people. That is what that means. The gnat part here is more of a strain. The actual Hebrew that they're talking about is strain. They will strain wine to make sure that there is no gnats or no insects or nothing in it that they shouldn't take or ingest into their bodies. They worry more about straining on all of that, but they would swallow a camel, wouldn't they? Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye may clean the outside of the cup and the platter, but within they are full of extortion and excess. Thou lying Pharisees, cleanse first that which is within the cup and platter, that ye outside of them may be clean also. Isn't that something? They worry more about the outward appearance than they do the inward person. Woe unto you, scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are likened unto whitened sepulchres, which do appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead men's bones, and of all uncleanliness. Even so ye also outwardly appear righteous unto men, but inward ye are full of hypocrisy and iniquity. What are they talking about there? It was considered unclean for a Jewish person to touch a body. And they added to it a grave of a dead person. That was what they added to it. So they would paint graves white, where they usually had stones on top of them stacked, and they would paint those stones white so that they could go around. They looked pretty. Stone stacked with white paint. It looked pretty, but it was still full of dead men's bones. It looks pretty, but inwardly you are full of hypocrisy and iniquity. Folks, and you can put on, he's saying you can put on the best clothes you got. You can put on the little metal or the little bands about your head, the rubber or leather palax or whatever you call them, and around your wrist, and you can do all the things you want to do and seek all the high seats and everything, but you're still just as dirty on the inside as you can't clean that up unless you go through Jesus Christ. We say putting lipstick on a pig. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! Because ye build the tombs of the prophets, and garnish the sepulchres of the righteous, and say, if we had been in the days of our fathers, we would not have partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. Kind of what Greg was getting into just a little bit ago. They decorate the righteous and those that has went on before them, the saints, what we would call the saints, and they want to, like we put headstones out, we clean them up and we decorate them, and all the things they do, and we look back. I've heard preachers preach. Boy, if I was back in Jesus' time, I wouldn't have done the things that you probably would have too. So you didn't have this to go look backwards on and see. It's easier. Hindsight is 20/20, isn't it? That's what they were saying. If we would be back at the times of the prophets and all those things, the ones that God sent to tell about things, we wouldn't have done it. Oh yeah, they would have too. He says, wherefore ye be witnesses unto them yourselves, that ye are the children of them which killed the prophets. The Messiah is standing right in front of you, and you don't even recognize him. You want to argue with him. You've seen all the things he's done. You've heard the reports of all the things. My, oh my, they didn't even notice. Fill ye up then the measure of your fathers, ye serpents, ye generation of vipers. How can ye escape the damnation of hell? Hey, yeah, you think that they was mad when he started calling them hypocrites, now he's calling them snakes and vipers, and you're going to hell pretty much. Oh, I bet the blood was boiling, wasn't it? Wherefore, he says, behold, I send unto you prophets and wise men and scribes, and some of them ye shall kill and crucify, and some of them shall ye scourge in your synagogues, and persecute them from city to city. Who do you think he's talking about? His disciples. Those that's going to come after him. I'm going to send those to you, out to you, and you're going to do the same thing that your fathers did. I was wondering, I wonder if old Saul of Tarsus was in this group listening. Why, he got so fired up wanting to go arrest all of them. Go out and hunt them all down and put them all in prison. He says that upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth. Two names he's mentioned here. From the blood of the righteous Abel. The very first that was murdered, right? Abel was the very first one whose blood was shed because his brother Cain was jealous. And to the blood of Zechariah, son of Barnabas, whom he slew before the temple and the altar. He was the last one. In Chronicles, which is the end of the Jewish Bible, he was the last one to be slain of the prophets. So he's saying from the very beginning of the very first slain to the very last one recorded in God's Word, you was right there taking part in. All of them. Verily I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how thou killedest the prophets, and stonest them which are sent unto thee. How often would I gather thy children together, even as a hen gathereth her chickens under her wings, and you would not? How many times did he send a prophet and to tell them what they needed to do and tell them what was going to happen if they didn't, and they wouldn't accept it, they didn't believe the words? Think about old Jonah. How he went into Nineveh and warned of what was going to happen to them, and went up on the city to see what was going to happen. And they all repented and rent their clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes. And God changed his mind and destroyed them not because they repented. What do you think Israel would have acted the same way? That God wouldn't have done the things to them that he would have. But they didn't listen. Behold, your house is left unto you desolate. About, what was it, about 76 years later? Rome came in and destroyed the temple and burned almost the whole city to the ground. For I say unto you, ye shall not see me henceforth. Till you shall say, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. Boy, he was giving them a mouthful, wasn't he?
This year was 33 AD, after 70, right?
70, yeah, 70, may have been 70, around that time period. Well, does anyone have anything else?